think no contractor, no architect, nobody in this build process can know everything about everything. There's just too many components in a building that come together. And having those extra pair of eyes with experience, it helps.
So hi Tina, here we go again. This episode I suspect could be a little bit shorter than the usual.
Okay.
We're just gonna run quickly through who's who.
Quickly, you and me. Sorry.
Well, okay, we'll try. Who are the different people in a construction project?
Okay.
Just to explain, because explain to our viewers who we're talking about when we refer with certain professions or positions, right? So the client, Tina, who's the client?
Client is typically the person who's paying for all the works and is looking for the end result. And as we're kind of typically talking about sort of residential private homeowners are our typical clients. And they're the people leading at the very top of the chain, the process. They may not understand all the technical aspects of it, but let's call them the funders in
Oh, careful here, not the funders.
Not the funders in developer sense, maybe, but as in
people who pay the bills.
Exactly.
Pay everyone.
Paying
and
the chain.
And they're getting the value out of the project, right? A developer would be a client as well.
Yeah, a developer would be a client as well. In that instance, the funder is potentially somebody completely different.
I'm not sure whether we've got funders on the list, but the funders specifically, that will be banks.
Yes, exactly. In that instance,
other organizations that actually provide financing for the project. So let's not use funder.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, agreed. Good. But anyone who actually commissions the projects and then and pays the bills, and whether it's from loans, funding, or
whatever
their
it might
own
be,
money,
is ultimately the person with that interest in the end result.
Okay. So that's the client. So when we refer to the clients, that's what we mean.
Yes.
And actually that term is used throughout the whole construction stack of the team. So although my client quite often, I may be the client of someone else.
Yes.
When we talk about the client, we talk about that person.
Yeah.
Oh, people, organization, right at the top of the
chain. Yeah.
It's not the tree because it's wrong shape.
Yeah.
But okay then.
And just to add confusion to that, in one little instance, in a contract, the client is referred to as the employer.
That's true. Depending on the contract. That's under JCT contracts. Interchangeably could be in contracts. In JCT contracts, it's called the employer.
People often get very confused when we start saying the employer in the contract.
Okay then. So the next one on the list we have is project manager.
That's your domain. I'm going to let you.
That's my domain. That's actually
you explain.
That's my pet rant. So project manager term, it's used on so many different levels in construction and to describe so many different positions and roles. And in my personal opinion, it shouldn't, because I think there is only one project manager.
No, sorry.
No. In most cases, it isn't me. Occasionally I am, but most cases it isn't me. And the project manager sits right at the top of the team, of the whole project team, and it sits just below the client. So often you have contractors coming in, this is my project manager. No, it isn't. It's a construction manager or contracts manager. And then you've got subcontractors. Oh, this is my project manager. And I don't know, he's just a foreman. So the project manager is just one role within the overall project chart, organization chart, right? Teams chart. And what are the responsibilities? So the project manager's responsibilities typically will assist the client with setting up the project brief parameters, setting out what are the end goals of the project, and then assist in hiring the client's team, including all the required professionals, design team, architects, and so on and so forth, and also manages delivery of those teams. Set those deliverables, time deadlines, and make sure that everyone is working to that common goal, which is aligned with client needs.
And they're
we agreed on that.
Agreed completely. They kind of protecting the client to an extent, but equally, I think it's a misconception to assume the project manager knows everything about the project.
Oh, they don't.
Exactly, but it's a misconception, and that's something I want to make.
Well, they work at high level, really.
Yes, exactly. And then there are various different people that know their elements.
Yeah, and have their own expertise. That's why we don't have one person designing the whole project. We've got different professionals involved because they have expertise in their own areas of expertise. By the way, for those people on smaller projects, usually you don't have them. It's a role that's shared with architect, lead designer, sometimes QS, and so on. Because obviously that's another overhead that on smaller projects it
may not merit it.
It really doesn't make sense. Okay, then. So you're an architect. So who's an architect?
Who's an architect?
Who's the architect? Let's put it this way.
The architect is likely to be responsible for the overarching design, not always, but the overarching design and kind of what you're getting at the end of it. Technically speaking, the architect is somebody registered on the architect's register.
That's a very good point. It's a protected
title.
Profession, right?
Only title.
Not function. Yeah. Everyone can call themselves a QS, right? But not everyone can call themselves an architect.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anybody can do the function of an architect, and I think that's something to kind of clarify on that. So it's a protected title. Check the register if you're not sure. And it's also sometimes a useful place to start when you're looking for an architect, maybe. But equally, it's the person that's overarching, seeing through the design, understanding how things coming together, and potentially an element of coordinating the design, because there are various elements designed by other people. And we've got a list of various different people that come in through the stages. But they're the people that bring the design together and potentially see through the vision.
Yeah. So my understanding is architect will design architecture. It doesn't explain anything.
Exactly.
But it will design the space, how it's laid out, the sort of the construction part of the works. The layouts, the movement of people through the spaces, how the spaces are used, then goes into construction details, how to ensure that there's no moisture ingress, that there's no rain coming through your roof, there is no damp coming through your floor, and that the building complies with the current planning regulations and requirements, and that also complies with building regulations, and is built up to the standard. And they will refer specialist design to specialist designers who we will talk about.
Yeah.
And quite often the lead designers as well.
Yes.
So what does it mean that when the architect is a lead designer?
They're effectively leading the rest of the design team. And again, going back to that coordination,
and coordinate
they bringing them together. And it's a role that coordination that I don't think you can necessarily understate it, because it's so important. It's the difference between.
So what do you mean by coordination?
So in very simplistic terms, you may have a wall where you're taking out that wall, putting in a steel beam. And in parallel, your AC contractor is looking to put a duct in the middle. And typically, A versus B should not clash. And we want to make sure that it all comes together and still give you that beautiful flush ceiling. I'm just really simplifying it. And we want to make sure that that's all coordinated. So that you get
when
the
they
end
actually
vision.
Start building it, they don't clash.
Exactly,
They don't
exactly.
clash.
And how that can be overcome, because early stage design, you can overcome that if you think about it. You think of a different route, or you redesign something to allow for it. But thinking about it when it's there on site is probably a failure on the lead designer's part.
Okay. And is the architect always a lead designer?
On the smaller scale, probably yes. On a larger scale, there may be somebody else, depending on the complexity of the project and what is driving the project's overarching thing. But most of the time, I think the architect is the lead designer.
And just to sort of further clarify, when we refer to architect, we don't necessarily mean one person, right?
No.
It's it could be on small project, could be one person, but on larger projects, it will be an architectural team with a lead architect. Lead architect as a manager of the team.
Yes.
And there's more than one person delivering the project. Okay, I think that's clear. So who's the planning consultant then? Why do you need them? I thought architects knew everything.
Really? So, common misconception, architects don't know everything. Buildings are complex. And planning consultants effectively help navigate the planning process, which in some smaller occasions is fine for an architect to do. The more complicated the project is, and you could have complexity in the form of listed buildings, conservation area, or just what you're proposing is a little bit more complicated, that's when actually the resource of a planning consultant is almost invaluable. They help navigate and help coordinate the design to ensure that it's going to comply with planning policy. They also often talk the language of planners in the planning departments and can help navigate that element of the conversation.
That whole maze.
Exactly. And that's all they do is planning, whereas architects do a bit at the beginning when you're kind of outlining the initial brief and designing what it might look like. They do the bit in the middle where you're kind of like working out the detail, and they can often do the bit on site as well. Planning consultants focus just on planning, so they're really well versed in policy. And it's probably worth clarifying, policy changes more frequently than I can care to keep up with it.
And it's never ending field of
drama.
Yeah.
So you want a planning consultant on the right project, recommended.
Yeah. So the next one on the list, we've got heritage consultant.
So similar to how planning consultants know about planning policy, heritage consultants, you would normally bring them in on a listed building, again, where it's complicated, because even within a planning department, you've got planning officers and conservation and heritage officers that look after the, as it says, heritage of the asset. And they're almost like forensic in their assessment of an older building. They will look at all of the history behind it, they'll collate a report, and they're talking the same language as the heritage officers in planning departments. Often they've started in planning departments, they'll have connections with those people. And so finding a good heritage consultant, I think, is also important. If you've got a complicated listed building, a very useful asset to help make sure that the design, what you're proposing, is going to tick these boxes for making sure it goes through planning.
Ultimately, your project gets approved.
Yeah, exactly.
What you're proposing gets approved. Okay.
What's next? I've got contract administrator. I'm going to put that one at you.
Well, we've got contract administration / employees agent. I'll be quick to point out these are different roles.
Oh, go on then. So they shouldn't have a slash then. They shouldn't
have a slash. Well, that's a little bit nitpicking, really. But
go for it.
But that's my area of experience. So contract administrator, it's a role under, I think, predominantly JCT contracts. Yeah. It's a person. It's not a company. On this occasion, it is a person who is responsible for ensuring that both parties of the contract, the parties are the employer / the client, and the contractor, fulfill the obligations in accordance with the contract. They've got a number of different powers and a very good idea for
another podcast.
episode maybe here. What these are, but they've got different powers and of instructing works, instructing changes, acting on work that hasn't been done in accordance with the design, certifying payments, ascertaining damages, and so on and so forth. It's a very important role when it comes to construction phase, when it's on site and you've got contractor and the client in the contract. And we've got / employer's agent. And the reason is that when you've got contract, which is a design and build contract, which is type of contract where the client's design team only designs up to a certain point, and then the contractor takes over the rest of the design. When we've got contracts like this, that person is called an employer's agent. But there is a critical difference between those two roles. That's why I said that they shouldn't be listened together. And the difference is that the contract administrator has duty to the contract. So the client employer cannot tell the administrator what to do, right? If I'm a contract administrator and the client tells me to do something which is not in accordance in the contract, I will not do it. I'm legally bound to carry out my duties in accordance with the contracts, not with client's instructions.
Again, a major misconception.
It's my major
tested a hell of a lot.
My major misconception, and we tread very carefully. Sometimes
the responsibility of that role is very weighted.
It's huge, and we tread carefully in those situations. But employer's agent, actually, that responsibility that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So in the JCT design and build contract specifically, it will always state all those powers that in the traditional contracts. Once again, we probably need to explain at some point what's traditional.
Another series on contract.
But what's traditional, what design and build? In those traditional contracts, it's contract administrator with responsibility of towards the contract, and the contract states that contract administrator shall or may or whatnot. The references to the contract administrator, actually client has no power to instruct or certify almost anything, with few exceptions, in those traditional contracts. In design and build contracts, there's employer agent, and it says the client, the employer or his agents, and it could be more than one agent. So it's a very it's a crucial distinction that is often understood. Yeah, and I'm happy to do a little mini episode on that because I'm a little bit...
you're passionate about it.
I'm quite passionate about that. All right then. So now, Tina, you tell me, who's a quantity surveyor / cost consultant as well?
Oh. Right. Do you really want me to tell you who a quantity...
that will be interesting because that's me.
Right, exactly. You're the quantity surveyor.
That will be interesting to hear it from architect's point of view.
Architect's perspective. Who is the quantity surveyor? Right. It's in the name a little bit. It's about assessing cost.
Quantities
relative to what it's going to cost. And equally, I think from just kind of in a practical sense, and hopefully this will explain what I think the role is. On a project, you want to bring in a quantity surveyor as early as possible. They're going to help you manage budget.
Yeah.
And give you a realistic sense of what that budget is as well. And I think realistic is important earlier rather than later, because then you know how far your money is going to stretch. But it also helps the design team to navigate what is possible relative to the design. And there are, again, countless examples where people don't employ a QS early and then discover at the end that they can't afford to do what the design team have so beautifully crafted, which is just painful, right? Ultimately. So having a QS early on, you don't need to do a full schedule at the outset, but you can get a budget plan. They then reevaluate it at various stages, making sure that it's all on track. But they also help with navigating the contractual complexities, including engaging a contractor. Not necessary to have a QS on all projects, just as it's not necessary to have any of these roles that we've discussed to an extent.
I would defend on that, but so what's the difference between quantity surveyor and cost consultant?
Oh, good question, right? I guess the cost consultant is just looking
more expensive.
Is the cost consultant more expensive?
I don't know. I'm just.
Cost consultant is just looking at the cost, whereas the quantity surveyor, I think, is giving you a bit more than that.
All right.
Go on. You tell me the difference. Where did I go wrong?
Well, I'll tell you my take, and I think it's a little bit fluid, and perhaps someone has written a book on that, and will prove me, will pick me up on that.
We'll email you.
Yeah, but quantity surveyor, in my opinion, is more of a sort of bean counting man, right? So that's the person who both deal with. Everything financial and everything contractual in construction, right? From setting budgets and controlling expenditure and change the price of change and preparing documentation for tenders and certifying value of works and so on. So and with all the contractual stuff, but the difference is that, at least in my opinion, and might be different for different people, is that the quantity surveyor's work, it's more concerned with producing documents, certification, counting what's due, maybe providing analysis of contract terms and advice and so on. Very sort of that nitty-gritty accounting almost type of work, whereas cost consultant, which could be the same person, is more involved in design process and early design process, and it's more involved in setting out budgets, value engineering, and the role is more proactive. So with the QS, it's you as an architect, you will produce a tender documentation. QS will prepare a pricing document, maybe advise how much it's likely to cost, and then analyze the quotes from contractors. The cost consultant will come earlier and will take that more proactive role, working with architect, working with client, and doing that sort of research and discovery of how things can be done more efficiently.
Okay.
But I think the line is blurred.
Exactly. Because if you were looking for a cost consultant specifically versus a QS, would you excuse the phrase, but search it in Google or whatever your search engine is, and just put cost consultant as opposed to QS then?
Well, cost consultants also is a term that it's very, I think, industry, it's only known in this industry.
That's why I think you'd end up starting looking at a QS firm that does both, right? Has that fluidity?
Well, it depends on the QS.
Okay.
So I know some QS, quantity surveyor, right? Which is also a very niche profession. When people ask me what's your job, and I say quantity surveyor or QS, unless they've got anything to do with construction, they've got no idea what that means. So I have to explain. So it's a niche profession. But I know quantity surveyors who make very good cost consultants and can advise clients, and they're very happy to step into that more proactive role. And I know others who don't, who won't touch it. Both types are very useful, right? So if we've got queries about just analyzing and managing the payments and accounts of, say, subcontractors or larger part of different packages, you want the one who wants to just take the data, take the documents and analyze it and be left alone and don't talk to anyone and just come up with a solved equations, right? That's what you want. But when you want someone who will sit down with the client and analyze the situation, maybe come up with different solutions and advise the design team on different approaches to certain problems that are more cost effective or time effective, because that's also comes in.
There's a cost to that.
Then the cost consultant type of person.
There you go. I learned something new today.
All right. So structural engineer.
A structural engineer looks after the structure, right? And designs the structure in a nutshell. Structure can mean all sorts of things. It's the stuff below the ground as well as above the ground. Mm-hmm. And it's about making sure the building stands up.
It doesn't fall down. So you make it pretty as an architect, and they make sure they make sure it stands.
Exactly. In very rudimentary terms, that's what it means. But a good structural engineer can save you a lot of money in construction. And again, when we're talking about sort of proactive design, there are ways to design buildings that will stand forever, and but equally are incredibly expensive to build. And there are ways for an engineer to be really proactive and think, okay, what's the most cost-effective way, build-wise? And I think sometimes people don't necessarily appreciate the two things. So spending money on a good structural engineer can often save you a lot in the build. But
I feel this is a comment for all designers, right? True. Every design specialty field, they can design well or badly.
Yep.
They can design something that fulfills the needs and it's fit for the purpose at low cost at high cost of actually constructing it. So I think that should be known to every designer we talk about, that that can be done with everything in life, well and badly. So M&E or MEP, what other abbreviations have you got? Engineer.
So let's just break down the abbreviations.
What are the M's, right?
Mechanical and electrical.
Yeah.
And MEP is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing.
Plant.
Okay.
And plant.
There you go. See, I need to go back to school.
It means the same thing.
Yeah. But essentially, the kind of nuts and bolts infrastructure, if I see it.
Systems.
Stuff that you often don't see, but you feel. Mm-hmm. All the way from heating, lighting, would you stick AV in
drainage.
there? Potential drainage. Ventilation.
Which drainage is sometimes designed by structural engineer.
Yeah. Or a civil engineer sometimes.
It will be civil, yeah.
So there's often crossovers, so being really clear who's doing what. But it involves a lot of things, and if not done well, it can cost a lot at the outset. Again, going back to that point that you raised. But something that the more complicated your build is a team that you want on as early as possible. Yeah. Again, thinking about, because M&E design can often impact what you go in for planning with, particularly if you're putting in AC or heat pumps.
AC was
air conditioning.
Air conditioning.
Or if you're putting in air source heat pumps or anything like that. Actually, it does impact planning. So you want to be upfront about, do we need to engage these people sooner rather than later? Because people often wait or push that into, and we've discussed this previously about contractors' design portion, but they push it down the line thinking somebody else can deal with it. But it's a big ticket item in a build. Yeah.
It could be 20-30% of the whole cost. It could be your services.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Okay then, and I'm quizzing you a little bit, because you very often lead designer. You employ those people. You recommend advise on employment to clients. So, acoustic. We've got acoustic engineer, I guess, or designer.
Acoustic consultant actually is becoming more and more prevalent as a consultant that we engage very early on, particularly for planning. Partly because the planning departments, and this is potentially a London issue more than anywhere else, they want acoustic data on the plant that's going in. So essentially the M&E guys tell us what they're putting in, and we're like planning department saying, okay, how is that going to impact the surrounding area? And so you engage an acoustic consultant who
provides that
information.
Those calculations and information.
Exactly.
Okay. And environmental consultants.
Yeah. So again, depending on how much environmentally friendly factors, so you get different types of environmental consultants. So if we talk about just the first one, people that help you reduce the amount of energy being used on your site, and particularly looking at improving the efficiency of the build. You may well employ somebody as a specialist to do that. But in parallel with increasingly changing in the building regs, in order to have more and more glass on your building, it is likely to get through that process. And we've all seen the beautiful houses with all glass at the back. You're going to need a SAP consultant that effectively makes sure that the glass...
What does SAP mean?
Oh, the honest answer? I have no idea.
You only refer by the abbreviation. Okay.
Right? SAP calculation.
We'll put it in the edit over here.
Right? Because some sort of assessment that is done, and it has to be done by a certified person. You can't just, it's not necessarily expensive, but it does need to be done if you're having a glazed construction.
So what is that assessment?
It assesses the performance, the energy performance of your building relative to the regulations.
How much heat it loses and gains.
Exactly.
And gains. Okay. Okay. And interior designer.
Quite a contentious one, I think, because you get varying scales of interior designers. You get some that I think, and I'm going to put this very crudely, when I was studying, you kind of had people that do the curtains and the cushions, and they can be classed as interior designers. Or you've got actually what I consider to be an interior designer that really looks at how the whole space is going to be finished, what you're going to be left with on the inside. And the reason is
all the things we can see.
Exactly, and feel quite often. And that's down to furniture, down to tiles, to the finishes, everything, even the lights, it's the actual fittings that go in. And the reason there is a difference is partly because of the way they're trained, because you can get often these kind of little courses that say you can become an interior designer in 3 months. And there is a hell of a lot of that. And so that's why, though you can't learn this stuff in 3 months. I'm sorry, anybody that tells you you can is kidding. But they really do. A good interior designer can leave you with an absolutely amazing space at the end.
And we've worked with some absolutely amazing ones. But I agree with what you said. There is so much confusion, but there are just different types. There are those who deal with quite a lot of types of finishes and decisions, even decisions of sort of in terms of layouts, layouts and how that will work later with furniture and needs of the client. And there are those who just deal with the fluffy stuff,
the soft
stuff, which is there's place for both. There's place for both, and also I feel that it's there's a with some of interior designers there is an overlap with what architects do, because quite often architects will do some interior design, but maybe not to such an extent as the interior designer will.
And I think there's probably one thing just to clarify on the interior designer element is how they're paid, because sometimes the perception to a client is that they're free, because
they're not.
They often, if they're procuring items, they're taking a percentage off the back of it. If they claim,
most of the times,
if they're claiming they're free. So don't be misguided about what that looks like. So and they don't necessarily need to even declare what percentage they're taking.
So I've come across some unscrupulous types. I've not met anyone who said that they would do design for free, but they were definitely
commission based.
I've come across some who were very open about it, but most of interior designers would take a commission,
and that's fine.
At least on all the finishes that they were procuring. And I can understand the reasoning behind it, that they take risk for delivery breakages and so on. So I understand it, but I've worked with some absolutely brilliant ones. Maybe we will invite them in. But also I've met a few who were A little bit dodgy.
Let's leave that there.
Yeah,
we don't want to slander anyone.
Okay, then. Principal designer.
All right. So principal designer, confusingly, that term is kind of bandied around on two things at the moment. One is the CDM regulations, and I'm not going to go into necessarily the exact,
yeah,
right?
Maybe.
A really boring episode on CDM. No, sorry. So principal designer in relation to, I'll package it as health and safety type stuff and construction protection sort of things. And then you've got principal designer under sort of post-Grenfell, what's come out is the kind of Building Safety Act and the principal designer under that.
It's a little bit confusing that
maybe a bit more than a little bit.
Legislators chose the wisdom to use the same name for those.
There was a reasoning behind why they did it. The logic has passed me. And the two roles are different. And quite often your architect will be your principal designer under the BSA, the Building Safety Act. And your principal designer under CDM can be somebody completely different.
Yeah.
The intention is that it should be the same person, which is why they've named it the same thing. The reality is that it's unlikely to be the more complicated your project is. And I'll probably park that there.
Yeah, just leave it there. All right.
Here's one for you. Oh, no, principal contractor.
Yeah, that's more for me. So all the design team, it's your strength point. Principal contractor. So that's a term on the CDM 2015 again as one of the principal designers, and it's the person or organization who is responsible for health and safety on site and delivering the works in a safe manner. Typically, it will be the main contractor. We'll get to the main contractor, but not always. It doesn't have to be. And I worked on projects when it wasn't the main contractor. Namely, there was one where there was like the large part of the value of the works and the scope of the works was services, mechanical, electrical plant, and actually on that occasion the MEP subcontractor was the principal contractor because they had more control over what was happening on site, although they weren't the main contractor. The main contract was with someone else.
It's an interesting scenario.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, and you can. Which I didn't know until a couple of years ago, which we had a problem on one of the sites. It can be a different person, and you can transfer that responsibility. But it's the client's responsibility to ensure that there is someone
who is taking on that role.
Who is taking on that role. And that will be covered in that very boring CDM episode.
We'll find a CDM consultant that wants to talk about it, right?
Bore everyone to death. Sorry, no, it's very interesting for all the CDM consultants. Yeah, it's very interesting. So who's a CDM consultant then?
The person that likes to do all that boring stuff. It's not boring, actually. It's a really important role. And to be fair to it, it is about making sure the health and safety is all safe during construction, but also in maintenance. So it's not something to be smirked at, but it isn't necessarily the most
sexy part of construction. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Clerk of Works or a quality inspector.
Yeah, Clerk of Works. That's it's like just a little bit of an archaic.
Yeah, I was going to say it's an old
school. But they're very useful, especially on slightly larger projects.
And they're coming back as well now, aren't they? They're the impression I get.
We have okay. That's what you think? I mean, because we on many larger projects that we work and we involved in through the construction, we always recommend to have a Clerk of Works. I don't know whether it's sort of the trend for them to come back in, but it's very useful. The role, it's a client's agent whose role is to regularly check if the works are being carried out in accordance with the contract and the contract design. And, it's another pair usually pair of eyes. Usually it's a person. There are companies who are employed, but they usually send the same inspector on regular basis, depending on the project. There's different there's sort of different frequency, and they will come to site. And they will go through everything that's being done. They will flag any inconsistencies, any
foreseeable issues potentially.
Yeah, or foreseeable issues. The good ones also look at the design and actually comment on design if there are any things that
herrings.
Any herrings. That's something that maybe should be discussed and addressed before it's built, and they ensure that everything is checked and built in as it should be. If you're building a £250,000 extension, there is no need for that role, and you do it as an architect. I'll do it as a quantity surveyor. If I go to site, I've got legal and the CDM. I've got legal obligation to actually flag any items that are incorrect and so on. And I've got to make sure that they are notified the appropriate people. But as projects get larger, so for example, we've just finished a £9 million build. They're so big that when for example, I visit every couple of weeks, you visit maybe every couple of weeks,
we don't see enough.
We don't see everything. If we spot something, we spot something, but we there for different reasons.
Yeah.
You there to discuss any design queries, to have conversation with subcontractors, to clarify things relating to design, how it needs to be built. I'm there to check the progress of works and so on. So if we notice something, we notice that, but we'll notify it, but it's not the reason for us to be there. And the clerk of works, the whole reason for them to be there is to check the work.
Yes.
So we work with some good ones. Fortunately, rate them very highly.
Yeah.
It really helps. It really helps with the project. And sometimes they even, it's not so much about pointing fingers and spotting it, and pointing fingers and putting blame on someone. Is just spotting those issues before they become late and costly to fix them.
Yeah.
So many things that they spotted, they were just solved by the contractor very quickly, and things moved on.
And I think, to be fair, and I think part of the reason why we've kind of set up this podcast is we want construction to be less adversarial and kind of less pointing fingers. And I think one of the kind of things with the clerk of works and a contractor working collectively is, I think no contractor, no architect, nobody in this build process can know everything about everything, right?
No.
There's just too many components in a building that come together. And having those extra pair of eyes with experience, and I think a clerk of works, I see it as a role of somebody of experience. It's not a fresh-faced junior sort of a role. It helps to kind of, they've almost seen it, tested it, and they've seen things happen before.
Funny you say that, because usually they're like,
I'm being kind.
They've been around the block,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. And the whole idea
close to
is
60, so the older guys,
and the whole idea is that you want that experience to foresee those issues, so that they can speak to the contractor and say, "Oh, sorry, mate. If you did this like this is what's going to happen. Let's just change it here now." Before it does. So I just wanted to kind of praise that process.
Okay. So next one, I think that's for you as well. And actually, I will change from what we've got on the list.
Uh-oh.
We've got building control, but I'll change it a little bit. Planning department and building control. And what's the difference?
Completely different roles.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, completely different. I'm going to elaborate. Give me a chance. So planning department in a local authority is essentially the team that determines whether or not you get planning. They normally...
Whether you can build or not.
Yeah. What you're proposing is possible or not. They will give you a...
Allowable.
Allowable. Yeah, possible. Allowable. Possible is a different sort of scenario. Yeah. But they grant you the permission to be able to build what you're proposing. They sit completely independently of the building control departments that are in councils.
Which I think is often misunderstood.
Exactly. They're completely independent. Typically, in most councils, building control is a completely independent organization within the council that has to be self-funded. Planning isn't. So local authority building control, they can take on...
I didn't know that.
Local authority building control can take on work from other councils because it's a commercial entity within the council.
Oh, okay. You learn something new every day. There you go.
Yeah, I know a few building control inspectors that work in various different councils that are, very knowledgeable. Again, going back to a clerk of works role, they're very knowledgeable if they've been there for a long time. You don't have to employ local authority building control. So building control is essentially the body that comes and checks periodically at set stages in a build when something needs to be inspected.
And they check it against?
The regulations, the building regulations. Yeah. So typical things are structure, drainage, insulation, electrics, those sort of things. They're not there to check if the build is being done correctly. They're just checking it against the regulations. And again, it's a very blurred line there. Your design team is responsible to make sure that the design is compliant with building regulations. These guys come and inspect it. And again, they may flag stuff or they may come back through the channels to say, I think this isn't correct. So
yeah, but I from my experience, and especially recently, because their role has changed.
Yes, exactly.
So they used to be, most of good building control inspectors used to be quite happy to advise and provide solutions. Now you may correct me, they're not allowed to do
Their
it.
insurance probably doesn't allow them to.
So they're not allowed to do that. So they're very careful not to provide solutions, and they. Not personally, but as a profession, all they care is whether what's being designed and built is in accordance with building regulations.
Yeah.
If your wall is in the wrong place or
don't give a flying monkey,
skewed or whatever, it doesn't concern them. Right?
Yeah, you don't employ a building control officer thinking you can ditch the architect. Is probably
or quality control.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have to hire. From the local authority, you can hire a private building control inspector to do exactly that role. Often, the reason why you might push for private is they can be faster to turn things around. And when you need an inspection on site, it can be time critical. But it's starting to change again.
It's starting to change. Yeah. I think my experience is that at least it used to be. Well, without pointing fingers, some local authority building control departments were absolutely awful to work with. Not in terms of what they demand, because they all require the same. It's just setting meetings and
it used to take weeks rather than
it used to take weeks, or you had to sit on site whole day to actually meet them, and they not very responsive to communication and whatnot. And at that point, when private companies were allowed, it was a breath of fresh air, because you could actually agree to meet someone at 2:00 and
lo and behold, they turn up at 2:00, right?
And they turn up at 2:00 and you have your meeting and you move on with your day. Whereas it's I'm sure there are plenty of local authority very competent building control officers. All right, then warranty provider.
Critical role, right? It can be, depending. So essentially, they provide. Well, the warranty provider. If I'm going to explain it in a new build sense, essentially, your contractor has responsibilities for a certain period of time, and your warranty provider kind of. Well, this is. I'm getting slightly confused, so bear with me.
But you're making a face.
You're making a face, and even in my head, I'm making a face.
Yeah.
Normally, with the warranty provider, if you're selling on the building afterwards, you may well, if the contractor doesn't resolve it, you may well have the warranty provider to provide some sort of warranty for the build. I'm going to let you describe it far better than I did on that one. We might edit that bit out completely.
No, let's leave it. Let's leave it. Well, as we said, we don't know everything. Every role has its
strengths and weaknesses.
So, all new build dwellings say dwellings because it includes flats and houses and maisonettes and whatnot. All new dwellings constructed in UK, maybe England or Scotland has a different
regulatory system completely.
So in England and Wales, must have a building warranty, which covers any latent and structural defects for minimum of 10 years. I think 10, not 12. 12 comes with liability contract. So it must be covered by a warranty and a warranty provider. And that's regardless whether it's self-built or contractor built or development or whichever, any dwellings. So a property
mortgage
that
provider
will be
is going
lived
to look
in.
for it, right?
Yeah. So that means that if anything happens with the building, there is a problem, say structural problem, subsidence, for example, or things start falling apart, there is an insurance, because that's what it really is. There is an insurance policy that will cover rectification works, repairs, or rebuilding of that property. And that's the warranty provider, in my understanding. Is that?
And particularly useful if your builder goes bust after.
I think that's the reason. I mean, the fleeting nature of some contractors. It's a well-known thing, and obviously, as limited companies, once the company stops existing, there is no one liable for there's no warranty or guarantee remaining. So you've got insurance
in place.
It's a little bit like insurance back guarantees, but or warranties, but for the whole building.
And they can be expensive. And I think but it's about protecting your risk, right?
They just require it. So if we advise on cost of new property, new build, we just factor it in, and you save on VAT. Then it's still worth it. Okay, then party wall surveyor, your side of the fence.
It's quite interesting. It's very, very niche. And I say that because they're really...
Is it?
No, well, when I say niche, in that, again, it's one of these roles that isn't very glamorous. It can be more glamorous the more exciting the project is. And if you're going into basements and stuff, it's into a completely different territory. But a party wall surveyor is effectively, to a certain extent, when you're building close to neighbours, they're protecting you and the neighbour. And there is a process set out under the Party Wall Act that effectively does that, so that your neighbours can't then knock on your door to say you've damaged my XYZ and come after you for the damages.
You need agreements for certain types of work being done within certain distance from your neighbours.
Yeah, typically 3 meters, can be up to 6 meters. There's a whole swathe of an act there.
And the Party Wall Act episode will appear at some point. Okay then. Utility network coordinators.
I think it's what it says on the tin, right?
Yeah, they coordinate new connections to sites, typically new sites.
Don't underestimate how long that stuff takes, and make sure
it takes a long time, and it takes some specialist work. But unless you're building a new
block of some sort, or a dwelling in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yeah, a dwelling in the middle of nowhere, or number of dwellings. It's you probably don't come across them. I'm gonna jump that list a little bit.
Yeah, go for it.
Main contractor.
Yeah. What did you say? The third most important hire of the build, right?
Well, no, it's not factor in the in setting out a successful story.
Successful.
That general builder, we call them main contractor, is the builder, the contractor who will oversee the full delivery of the project. Quite often it will be the full scope of the project. They have different subcontractors delivering.
Which brings us on nicely to the next one.
We'll drink to the next one. That they employ. Yeah, and they're responsible for delivering the whole project. Typically, it's the company and the guy you pay the most money to. You could have client direct contractors as well, so you might have some packages. in private residential respect, it's typically kitchen, or sometimes joinery. That it's the client will pay the company directly, and it's not done through the main contractor. So the biggest contractor there, right? Then we've got subcontractors. It will be any contractor that is not the main contractor. They only responsible for a package of work. When I mean package, is distinctive part of the works. Joinery could be structural, it could be basement, it could be plumbing, heating, could be electrical, could be any of those packages. Actually, the larger the project, the less the main contractor does with their own team, and the more they rely on subcontractors, specialist subcontractors, even for things like dry lining and roofing such, and roofing and such, because even with that general building work, on a large enough project, there is economy of scale and expertise. So a team of, say, dry liners or plasterers, whereas there's not much point of getting them on a small extension because the general builder can do it. When you have a big project and you've got thousands of meters, they will do it much faster and much more efficiently.
And that's all they do.
But because that's all they do. That's all they do. So subcontractors, it's distinctive packages of work.
But ultimately, the main contractor is responsible for all of them. And typically the contractual link is also in the same direction.
Yeah. So typically they are employed by the main contractor. Client direct subcontractors we already mentioned. So it sits outside of that structure and it's paid directly by the client, and main contractor has no responsibility for that. So I've got a question for you, trick question for you. Who is the named contractor?
Right, I know this is an exam question, right? So I'm going back a long time now. I say from my studying days. And I may well be wrong in my answer, so I'm going to go with it. You said named subcontractor, right? Named subcontractor is essentially, at the outset, you may have said that I want to use this person for this element. Contractually, the main contractor, is obliged to use those people because they've been named within the contract process, right? But they are employed by the main contractor. Have I got it completely wrong?
Yeah, pretty much there.
Yeah,
with a couple of missing details.
Go for it.
And it is it's a trick question. Right? It's very contractual. I threw it in just for fun. So it's a specific role or designation under JCT contracts, and not all of them. Just some. Only some of them allow that. And actually, to be bona fide named contractor, it's not sufficient for the client or the architect to say we want to use this company for marble, for example, right? This is just a suggestion. And actually, with all the contract, I think under your professional responsibility, it always needs to say or equal and approved. Because this is to stop collusion of designers specifying projects and then getting commission, envelopes in through the door or whatever. However it's done.
Easy.
However it's done. So unless it's a named subcontractor, the main contractor can always say, okay, then Ms. Architect, you have you want us to use this and this marble company, but I've got my own marble company, and here are the samples, and that's what they do. We want to use them. And I think it's very difficult for you as an architect or me as a contract administrator to actually stop them from doing that. But for the subcontractors that they employ, which are called domestic subcontractors, those, regardless whether you pointed them out or they chose them, they're fully responsible for price, quality, time of delivery. If anything goes wrong, under the main contract, the responsibility lies with the main contractor. They're liable for that. If and when we would like to force them to use a specific contractor under the main contract, NAS separately as the client direct,
engaged.
but we want to include them in the main contract. There might be good reasons for that. For example, zero rate VAT, right? You want them to include, but the contractor is not comfortable with them because they don't know them.
Yep.
Or they've got issues with the program or quality of work. They don't. Sometimes it would be like artists.
Yep.
Maybe that's difficult to
quantify a comparative,
whether the work is up to specification or not. You can still include those, but there's an appointment name contractor appointment instruction. I think someone will correct me on that. Maybe it's a certificate. I might be wrong on that. I've only dealt with like few in my life. It's very rare. But once it's formally that company person is formally appointed through the contract, through that route, the main contractor is responsible for procurement and scheduling and management on site, but they're not liable for quality or delivery.
And that's
or time, delivery time. And it's quite often sometimes when you use it, when those works are very valuable.
Yeah.
So you maybe goes £1 million and the client doesn't want to pay the contractor £1 million so the contractor pays the supplier, the client can pay supplier directly.
Yeah.
So contractual flow is the same, but the responsibility is different.
Yeah. And I think
it's very niche thing,
it's quite a complicated process, and it kind of highlights construction contracts are a maze.
Very, very complex. Very interesting though.
For the right people. But they're complicated, right?
Yeah.
And there's no way in a 5-minute snapshot you can cover all of that. It's just mad to think that.
The whole series of episodes.
Right.
I'll bore you to
but hopefully that list of key personnel in a construction project gives an insight into what's possible.
Well, we thought about doing this because we often get asked, right? And our clients or people we talk to who are not in construction, they will ask, who's the principal designer? Who's the planning?
What does that mean?
Yeah, what does it mean?
Why do I need them? I thought I just needed a builder.
Hopefully now they will know.
Perfect. All right. Perfect.
Shall I conclude on that?
Yes. Thanks for listening to the Home Project podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and stay tuned for further episodes where you'll be able to learn a little bit more about how you can avoid a horror build.
Make sure that you like and subscribe the podcast on the platform of your choosing. And with the launch, for the first 25 people who subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review, we offer a free 30-minute consultation with either Tina as an architect or myself as a quantity surveyor, where you can ask us questions about your project and we'll try to put you on the right path.